Hello, hello, beautiful humans. My name is Shelby Hartman. I'm DoubleBlind's co-founder and editor-in-chief, and today we're talking tripping on LSD in isolation tanks and talking to dolphins. Yes, you heard me right. But before we get into it, I'm gonna remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications if you never wanna miss a video from us. So what are we really talking about in this video? Usually on this channel, we provide educational information on how to take psychedelics, which you know if you've been following us for a while. But if you didn't know, we're also a print magazine, and we write all kinds of amazing stories about politics and the ethics of mainstreaming psychedelics and history, and you may or may not have guessed it, some really, really fascinating characters in the world of psychedelics. And today we are talking about John Lilly, who is most famous for inventing the isolation tank or the sensory deprivation tank, and also did all kinds of wild research with LSD and ketamine and dolphins, and we want to tell you the story. So John C. Lilly, or John Cunningham Lilly, is one of the most far-out researchers to ever experiment with psychedelics. He's probably, as mentioned, best known for his invention of the isolation tank, which is sometimes referred to as a float tank. And if you haven't tried one before, I highly recommend it. There are all types of ways to have psychedelic experiences beyond actually taking a psychedelic, and we talk about them on DoubleBlind and on the YouTube channel. But float tank is one of the most incredible ways to do this, and it's basically a dark tank that's filled with water that has a very high concentration of salt. And you go in it and there's no sound, there's no light, and you just feel like you are floating in outer space. And it is so relaxing. And when you're in there, you can have visions and all kinds of crazy things can happen. So Lilly invented the flotation tank. He was also known for his pioneering research with dolphins and interspecies communication, and his wild self-experimentation with psychedelics. Jasmine Virdi is the writer who first wrote about this for the 6th issue of our magazine, and she described John Lilly as controversial and celebrated, someone who was, quote, dismissed as a madman and revered as a genius. He was a physician, neuroscientist, psychoanalyst, consciousness researcher, and inventor. So what's his story and why should you care? In 1954, Lilly invented the isolation tank when he wanted to test the question that was plaguing scientists at the time: could the brain stay awake on its own, or does it need external stimulation from an outside reality to remain conscious? So he decided to create this tank that was supposed to completely deprive people of their sensory experiences. And, you know, when you first go in there, like I said, you can't hear anything, you can't see anything, it's completely dark. But interestingly, instead of it completely depriving people of their senses, what happens in there is that the isolation tank actually induces an altered states of consciousness, which includes waking dreams, out-of-body experiences, encounters with alternate dimensions. It can actually feel like you're on LSD. And it was during Lilly's long periods spent in isolation tanks that he began to wonder, what kind of creatures float 24 hours a day? So Lilly shared this reflection with his friend, Pete Shoreliner, who suggested, dolphins, they're available. Go down to the marine studios in Florida. John Lilly was mesmerized by dolphins' large brain size, and he first set out to continue his neuroscientific research with dolphins. Over time, Lilly came to believe that dolphins were a superior form of intelligence and that they represented exciting possibilities for interspecies communication. John Lilly wrote, "Through dolphins, we may see us as others see us." Feeling that establishing communication with dolphins was an important step in the evolutionary development of humanity. Lilly even went as far as to propose a cetacean chair at the United Nations, foreseeing a future in which marine mammals might wish for representation in global affairs. Lilly's theories around interspecies communication had special significance for astronomers like Carl Sagan, who felt that his research could help establish a precedent for communication with extraterrestrial life forms. Pretty out there. This helped Lilly actually secure financial backing from NASA and other government agencies to build a lab in the Caribbean in 1963. Lilly's Seaside Research Center in the Virgin Islands was a partially flooded house known as the Dolphin House, and it was built with the purpose of dolphin-human cohabitation. In the summer of 1965, Lilly's assistant Margaret Ho Lovett conducted a famous experiment in which she spent several months cohabitating with a young dolphin named Peter and trying to teach him how to speak English. However, a lot of the benefit of the 10-year experiment was lost and derailed by a scandalous news story in Hustler exaggerating Lovett's decision to sexually relieve Peter in order to help him maintain focus on their language lessons. I told you it was gonna get weird, folks. So John Lilly never succeeded in his pursuit of teaching dolphins English. I think we all would have heard about it if he had. And cracking the interspecies communication divide. But somewhere along the way, he began to ingest LSD. And as you can imagine, things get even weirder at this point. So what happened when Lilly took LSD? So Lilly was one of the few people who could access LSD legally, with direct access to the chemical from Sandoz Laboratories, the employer of famed LSD inventor Albert Hofmann, and the company responsible for providing all the early psychedelic researchers with access to LSD. At first, Lilly conducted extensive self-experimentations, tripping on LSD inside his isolation tank. Soon he decided to combine his psychedelic experiments with his dolphin research, ingesting LSD in a specially designed 8-foot cube above the facility and attempting to communicate with dolphins telepathically. He came to believe that the dolphins were in fact programming his trips. Later, he gave the dolphins themselves acid to see how it would affect their communication, and he found that it made the dolphins more vocal than usual. Imagine! Beyond their vocalizations, one of the most notable results involved a dolphin named Pam that had previously been rescued after being shot in the tail with a spear gun. As a result, Pam was traumatized by humans and would not come close to them at all. However, on LSD, Pam became more curious and sociable towards them. As Lilly's experimentations with psychedelics grew, he became increasingly reckless with his research methods, and funding for Dolphin House dried up. Ultimately, he had to ship the dolphins back to Florida, whereupon they were kept in small enclosures. Peter, after being separated from Lovett, reportedly committed suicide when he refused to surface for air. So, after the Dolphin House, John Lilly had a whole other chapter of his life where he was writing and working on ketamine. And yes, believe it or not, things got even weirder. When funding for Dolphin House dried up, he returned to the United States and decided to focus on his own writings and experimentations in consciousness. And in the early 70s, his writings and interests became increasingly opaque when he began combining his sessions in the sensory deprivation tank with ketamine, or as he preferred to call it, quote, vitamin K. He was, some might say, obsessed with understanding the inner realities that were opened up by ketamine. And there was a point at which he ingested 50 milligrams every hour on the hour for 22 hours a day for 3 weeks. Some might say that Lilly was addicted to ketamine for a time. However, he justified his use of it through his research on it, stating that, quote, any good research is obsessive and compulsive. It was in a ketamine vision that Lilly came to believe in the, quote, solid-state intelligence, a malevolent entity that would arise from human computational systems and evolve into an autonomous bioform bent on destroying humanity. He also became convinced of the existence of a hierarchical group of cosmic entities, which he referred to as the, quote, Earth Coincidence Control Office, or ECCO, ECHO, part of a much larger cosmic institution steering the long-term coincidences of his life, fatefully guiding him in specific directions. Lilly died in 2001 at the age of 86 from heart failure. In spite of his failures and unorthodox research methods, Lilly's contributions to both science and psychedelics have left a permanent imprint on modern culture. His prolonged sessions in his sensory deprivation tank with psychedelics served to shape the narrative of the 1980s film Altered States, and he was undoubtedly the inspiration behind the Sega Genesis game Echo the Dolphin. Perhaps more importantly, Lilly's work with dolphins changed the public perception of marine creatures, laying the foundation for the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972, the first act of the United States Congress to call specifically for an ecosystem approach to wildlife management. As mentioned, this is our first time doing a video like this on DoubleBlind. This is a recap of a story that was in issue 6 of the print magazine. And in addition to doing the kind of educational videos that you see all the time on this YouTube channel about how to journey on psychedelics, we have writers and poets and artists working with us on all kinds of incredible stories about the fascinating world of psychedelics. So we'd love to know in the comments if you'd like to hear some more of these stories in video form. And if you're interested in checking them out, you can also subscribe or buy the magazine at your local bookstore. So if you enjoyed this video, like it, subscribe, let us know in the comments so we can make more like it. Until next time.